Welcome back to Friendly Ties. Today, we are going to be talking about the wonderful world of Board Game Geek Con. So, this is going to be our second convention episode in as many months, right? I mean, it's our third convention episode total, but it's
True.
our second one in the last, recent this year.
We're hacks. We're just going for
but-
the easy content.
We have featured the World Series of Board Gaming. We've also featured the World Board Gaming Championships.
Mm-hmm.
But we thought that it would be fun this time because Jonathan has gone to Board Game Geek Con, not just this year, but a bazillion times.
Yes.
That it would
10
be
years
fun
now?
to feature.
This is
10
my
years?
ninth
Yeah? How
year,
many times?
actually. I and
9
also
years.
9 years.
we decided to hit while the iron was hot. Like I flew back 3 days ago. My voice is mostly better from playing games for 6 days straight. But yeah, no, this is my ninth time going, and yeah, we've interviewed Nick a whole bunch about the conventions he loves. I guess now it's my turn in the hot seat.
We're gonna put John on the spot, and we are going to talk about what it's like to go to a convention that has not about competition in any
Mhm.
way, shape, or form, but is just about playing games and hanging out and being with other people who love board games.
Yeah. So like the high level on Board Game Geek Con. First of all, even though I've been 9 times, I feel like I'm not an expert or anything. Like it's been around for 23 years, 22 years, something
Wow.
like that. Yeah, it
I
started.
didn't even know BGG was around for that long.
I think it started like a year or two after
yeah.
BGG started.
is
Yeah, and it has like 3,500, 4,000 people. Again, don't quote me specifically on these things, but to some people that's going to be a big con, and to other people that's going to be an itty bitty little con, right? When you think of like Gen Con has like 60,000 people.
What? Yeah, put that in contrast. So wait, from the conventions you go to, Nick, the World Series of Board Gaming, how do people go to that one?
It's less than 1,000.
Okay.
WBC is about 1,500.
Okay, so this is a little bit bigger than both of those.
Yeah. So I first went in 2014, and I fell in love with it. I've been almost every year since then. A couple of years there where not going made sense. But it's just all about playing games, and that's what I originally fell in love with it for. Also, it's the first board game convention I ever went to, so there's got to be some bias there. I never been to one when I went in 2014, and I was like all super nervous about it. I went with a couple of friends, which definitely helped ease into it. But it is a convention that runs from Wednesday through Sunday, so 5 days, with an asterisk, where you just play games. The convention is just open from 9 a.m., I think it was, on Wednesday until like 5 p.m. on Sunday. And it's 24 hours a day. The whole time, all the convention spaces are open. There's a huge hall.
Like actually 24 hours? Like I'm going to go downstairs at like 3 a.m. and I want to play games. There are
3 a.m.?
Playing.
That's early.
Oh, okay. we're gonna do. I'm ready. We're gonna do like a day in the life. I wanna.
Yes.
We're gonna get to that. You keep going.
So yeah,
High level overview.
It goes the whole time. And one of the biggest selling points of the convention, beyond like just play games like crazy, is it has a immense library. I'm not sure how it stacks up to other conventions. I think things have changed a little bit in the past. Like I think Dice Tower West's convention has gotten substantial, but the Board Game Geek library is. Like the first time I walked in, it was one like you hear the angels, like the light shone down. It's this room, and it's so many games, it's thousands and thousands and thousands of games. And one of the main selling points to me, at least when I first started for BGG Con, is that it is almost always the week before Thanksgiving, which also means it's almost always about a month after Essen in Germany, which is the convention where all the new Euro games come out. I mean, not all of them, but it's a huge convention for releases, and not everybody can make it over to Germany for that convention, and not everybody wants to attend a 100,000 person buying frenzy, essentially, at Essen. And Essen's all about buying games, and you can find spaces to play games in the cracks, whereas BGG Con is just about playing them, and they bring the hot games from Essen. Like they literally put them onto crates in Germany and they ship them over to Dallas so that they're there in time. And they just really focus on having new stuff as well as old stuff. And I could go into a lot more details, but that's like the high level overview on it. It's just playing games for as long as you want to for You think 5 days is a lot of days to play games all day long, but every time Sunday rolls around, I'm like, oh, wow, that was the fastest 5 days of my year.
So most conventions that I am familiar with have like a schedule, but BGG Con, it sounds like it's very heavy on the open gaming side. So does it have a schedule? Is there
It
structure?
does.
Like,
Yeah.
okay.
So I'm not hugely familiar with the scheduling part of things because my way of doing BGG Con is I show up on Tuesday and then I just play open gaming for essentially 6 days straight. I said it was a 5 day convention, but a lot of people show up on Tuesday and turn it into six. But there's a lot of events actually that are run or at least listed on tabletop.events, which kind of integrates a lot of board game conventions. And yeah, people get together for a bunch of different games, like tiny games, like hey, we're gonna play The Thing. One of my friends went to a scheduled thing. They played the game The Thing, and he'd been wanting to try it as a lover of like Battlestar Galactica and whatnot. And he just went and played with some people he didn't even know. He just went to the right place at the right time. It was free, like it makes an event, but you get a quote unquote ticket, but it doesn't cost anything. And there's all sorts of those things. There's also bigger events like the virtual flea market and the bazaar, which is just a crazy live flea market. There's trivia. There's tons of different things, and all of those things are events that you can like see online and sign up for, see who else has signed up for it. It's again not something I've really delved too much into, but supposedly it's pretty solid.
Give me the like lay of the land, right? So like what is like the open gaming like? I think I saw a couple of photos this year, but like
Sure.
is it just like one giant room? If you don't know anyone, can you like wander in and find a game? Is it just what is it? What does it feel like? What does it look like?
Um, there are several open play spaces, but the main one is a gigantic room. I if I had to guess, it's
Like
like
a hotel, like a
the
hotel
full
conference
hotel
room, right? Because
conference
that's what it is,
ballroom.
right?
Yeah, it's like 100
Yeah,
feet
yeah,
by 700 feet or something like that, 600 feet, and it's got
yeah.
thousands of tables in it. Probably, math is hard for a human on the fly, but yeah, it's just a gigantic room. Like people on the other side of the room are small. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're so far away, and but there are also like breakout rooms, like smaller rooms where people can go and play in like a quieter setting. And this changes from one year to the next as well. But this year we like a group of our friends, we kind of camped out on the same three tables off in a corner for 5 days straight, and that we didn't reserve it or anything like that, although I think there was a table reserving feature used this year, but we didn't really interact with that. But you mentioned, or you asked about like you walk in and how do you play. I have to admit, I'm going to say this a lot. I'm like, yeah, I've been so many times, but I'm not really an expert on a lot of these things because I've been privileged to always go with friends. Like the first few years I went with a couple of friends in particular. We shared a room and we just, the three of us played games like the whole way through. In the last couple of years, I have a wider group of friends. So I've never actually experienced the looking for a player, looking for a teacher type thing, but they do have a system for that. You have flags. They say, looking for players, looking for teacher, and you just put it on your table. And I think that does work. I don't know how successful that is for other people because I haven't actually interacted with it, but I know it's been a mainstay since the first time I went there. I think that's been a mainstay for a very long time because not everybody is able to fly out to Dallas with like a group of people to play with the whole way through as well. So yeah, there are a lot of facilities there to allow people to play these games and do that kind of thing. I know one of my friends, it was his first time coming this year. There were many times he just kind of wandered the hall and like looked for open play flags and that kind of thing, as opposed to staying with one core group. There's a lot of ways to do it, essentially.
I
Yeah.
have some theories about this question, but I'm curious, how it sounds like right, you camp in your corner, you play games with your friends, and maybe other folks that you've kind of met over the years.
Mm-hmm.
Why BGG Con rather than let's go to an Airbnb in the woods? What's the vibe that makes it different that like you like this experience in
Sure.
coordinating games
Yeah,
that way?
yeah. I mean, and we have done the kind of Airbnb in the woods with a small group of friends thing, and I do love that as well. But I think part of it is the fact that it's in Dallas. It's like the center of the country, and I have made a lot of friends from around the country. It seems like for the most part, people I was playing games with were from the United States, although there are people who fly in from further. But I think part of it is playing with friends who are not necessarily local. But the first couple of years, I did go with friends who were local. I like those two friends I talked about. They also live out here. They're part of my game group out here. And I think the allure was, well, and still is, just the transportive, magical nature of it, I guess. You're not having to drive anywhere. You're not having to do anything. It's just everything is there. It almost feels like Vegas for board gamers. Like there's no clocks on the walls. It's brightly lit all the time. There's a lot of joy that can be found in getting an Airbnb with your friends and whatnot. But this just has a different kind of energy. And also, to circle back a little bit to what I said earlier, it's got all the hot new games. If you want to try the new stuff that might not be available in the States for like 6 to 8 months, it's a little bit better now, but certainly in like 2014 when I first went, a lot of those games that you're really excited about that came out in Germany would not get localization in America for like a year. And oftentimes only if it was good enough, if it sold well enough in Europe. So that's one of the main allures, I guess, is like the library is there because it's not just new stuff. It's also thousands of old games, and it allows you to play that thing that you just never got around to repeatedly. Like last year, I played El Grande for the very first time. I've heard about El Grande forever. I just never was in a room with somebody who had the game, and it's there in the extended library. We got it played, and that was just a very cool thing to do. It is very easy to focus on all the new games, but there's just so many games in there, you can almost get lost in it, I guess. So yeah, that's I guess one of the main reasons. Also, just
makes sense.
Yeah. Also, if you're getting an Airbnb in the woods with your friends, you're probably going for a long weekend. A measly 2.5 days.
Measly
Paltry.
2.5 days.
Paltry
Laughable.
2.5 days.
No, I mean, I want to comment on this a little bit too, because, I was actually supposed to go this year and something came up and I unfortunately had to cancel my trip at the last minute. And I thought about this a lot. And, I think the thing that it's funny because when I was kind of talking about this with my partner, it was like, she was pointing out like, well, a lot of the people that you're going with, John mentioned his friends and his game group, we have a lot of the same friends in the same game group, and, I could see them all the time. Right.
Mm-hmm.
But there's something about planning a week with your friends in this circumstance where this is the focus, because the crazy thing about, life is that we're so busy all the time that it just somehow, even friends that I could see all the time, I don't see all the time, or I don't see all the time in this context. And so I think that is I think the allure of the convention is just like the 5 days single focus. And it's been so amazing to meet so many people all over the country and get to play games with them online. And then, here's this nice central location to be able to meet up with everyone and get a chance to see them.
Yeah, absolutely. Jessica has attended several times, my wife, and the very first time she was like, "Oh, it's summer camp for adults." Essentially, like you go out here and you just like, you set the week aside and there are no clocks and the food is not good, but it's very close and a lot like summer camp, and you just like have fun. You just have different people are going to get different things out of this convention for sure. But yeah, for me, a huge part is the people that I get to, that I don't see all that often, that I love to play games with. And, coming back to the library, there's something really, like from an endorphin hitting perspective, there's something really satisfying about the library. So you check out one game at a time. Everybody has a badge and has a little QR code on it. And if you want to check out a game, you just take it from the slot, you walk to the exit, and they scan your badge, they scan the game, and they say, it's due in 4 hours or it's due in 8 hours. The hot games, you have a 4-hour slot. All the other games, you have an 8-hour slot. And that's the only game you can check out. So if you want to check out something else, you got to check the first game in. And you could get up to some shenanigans like badge passing and stuff like that to like make sure you and your group of friends can get the stuff that you want. But it's a really interesting thing where like you finish a game, you pack it up, you're like, okay, I'm going to go to the library. So you go to the library, you check it in, you walk in the door, they scan the game, and then you have to put it back where it goes in the shelf. And then you could check out a game. You could have one game checked out at all times. You have this feeling of like, well, surely I should grab something else before I leave this room. Well, I guess I'll take a gander. So like every time you finish a game, you go back down into this trove of games and you look around, and it also has that like not a gambling thing, but like when you get lucky and you walk down there and then boom, the game that you've been wanting to play for 3 days, it's always checked out because everybody wants it. Somebody just slid it there under the rack and just go over and grab it. And you feel like you just hit the slot machine, or the jackpot essentially. And then, you scan it, you walk upstairs and people are like, oh, you got it. And I'm like, yeah. It's just a fun kind of thing. Or when other people do. I mean, River of Gold, we just talked about it in our last episode and I was really high on it. I still am. I actually bought a copy earlier today, but I really wanted to play it at BGG Con. Not because it was new to me, like we'd played it a bunch, we recorded an episode about it, but I wanted to show friends. Friends who can play it with me when my copy arrives in like a week. But I just wanted to play it, and I kept looking, and I kept telling people like, I keep looking for River of Gold, and it keeps not being there. And then on the Saturday, like the very last main day of the convention, my friend walks up, he taps me on the shoulder, and he shows me the River of Gold box, and I just screamed. It's like, yeah! I'm like, this is a game I've played like a bunch already. I was just so excited that he got it. And the same thing happened. He just walked up, somebody was walking in with it, and he just grabbed it. The hottest games oftentimes don't make it to the rack. I remember I checked out Black Forest, and I went in to check it back in. The lady duded it with the QR code. I turn around, and instantly someone's like, can I take that? I'm like, oh, sure. I could just hand it to them, and they walk right out.
Can I just have it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's part of the fun is like you're watching the rack, but you're also keeping an eye on the stream of people walking in, like what's going to come through that door. So that's just a really fun element to it. And, frequently several of us would all check out games. We'd go upstairs and we'd all read rule books, like have a big rule book reading party. And, a couple of them might be like, this doesn't actually look that good. Or like, oh, let's play that when you finish the rules first. And so, yeah, I find myself rambling now, but it really is hard to overstate the impact of the library, of the game library, and how it affects the overall space. I mean, like I said, we camped out at the same tables, but I probably walked miles when you combine just going from that table over the escalator down into the library, back to the escalator up, back to the table, and over and over and over again.
I'm trying to imagine doing this, and I feel like I would be like, I'd get into the library, be completely overwhelmed by options, love it. I probably could spend an hour in there. People be like, what happened to you?
Easy.
I was just walking around. But then, how do you choose, right? You can only choose one game.
Mm-hmm.
How do you know if everyone wants to play it?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. You're better than I am at just being like, I want to play this game, and then promoting it. I am the person
be on a
who
mission.
shows up.
Yeah.
Yeah. I show up to game day with 3 bags, and I'm like, I brought options because I don't know. I don't know what everyone wants to play, and I'm so. I'm one of those people where it affects me if you don't like the game at the table.
Mm-hmm.
I know that's a weakness, but it does. And so I'm always trying to find the game everyone else wants to play.
Yeah.
I feel like it'd be hard for me to choose.
I mean, at the end of the day, it's free, right? Like the cost to check out a game that you might not be able to get everybody on board with is that 4-minute walk there and back again, which is
a 4-minute walk, John.
But we also frequently somebody's like, I'm going to the library, and then 3 other people throw a game at them. So you could walk in with multiple games to check in for other people. I mean, that definitely happens. I know our friend Dave checked out several games that he never even asked other people to play because he kind of got into the rules and was like, nah, this isn't really turning into the game that I'm looking for. And he essentially just checked out the rule book functionally and then, went back downstairs and put it back in. So, yeah, it's you do have to go into it with what do we all want to play? What are we going to do? I mean, at one moment on the Friday of the convention, one of my friends was feeling pretty tired. And she was like, I could do with one polyomino game and then I'm going to take a break. And I was like, polyomino game. Wait a minute, Foundations of Rome. That's kind of an interesting polyomino game. And I remember seeing it on the shelf. So I went downstairs, checked that one out. We played it. It was great. They all loved it. And that was just because I kind of remembered seeing it because I'd been down there and spent so much time looking at it. So you can go down there with a mission, definitely. But usually I went down there with just kind of a lazy gaze, just trying to see what jumped out at me.
Yeah. I actually want to ask you a question about tiredness
Sure.
and noise and things, because I happen to know that you said that you didn't sleep, I think, this entire time that you were there.
I slept some.
I saw a lot of photos with Red Bull in the bag.
Yes.
Not just from you. it's something that kind of struck me that, I've been thinking about. I would game in person prior to the pandemic, but not that often, honestly. Just the nature of where my taste in gaming and my friends' taste in gaming and things that were going on in my life. And then when the pandemic happened, obviously we met, we have a bunch of other friends, and I started to game online a lot. And one of the things that I have loved about gaming online is you sit down, you do it. You don't have to drive anywhere. You can do it in your pajamas, all those things. Go get a snack, whatever. And
I think
it's
you're
been
just describing
interesting.
BGG Con. You could
Yeah,
just
I was
like,
gonna
you don't have
say,
to
like,
drive anywhere. You go there in pajamas.
That's sort of where I'm leading to, right?
Yeah.
Like, because I have noticed, like, over the last, couple of years, like getting back into in-person gaming, or for me kind of starting up more in-person gaming, I get like a lot more tired in person playing games. My back hurts. They're just different, like, elements. Sometimes I get a headache. Like, I have to remember to drink water. Things like that. It's just a different vibe. That's not to say I don't enjoy it, but I was kind of wondering, like, what is it like to just sit and play games all day, not just for one day. So I feel like I do a whole games day, and I'm like, I feel great, but I'm super tired at the end of it. But then to do that for 5 days straight, right? So
what's it like? It's like it's like heaven.
You don't get tired. You don't get a headache. Do you remember to eat? Like,
to assert dominance over your body, right? Like, there's
Yes.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
I guess,
so-
Look who I'm talking to. The two of you. Nick, didn't. Yeah, okay.
I will admit that,
Not
like,
my audience.
there was one day where I looked at my watch and it was 3:00 in the afternoon, and I'd been gaming since 8 in the morning, and I was like, oh, I should probably eat something. And I wasn't even hungry. Like, I like food. Maybe a little bit too much. But when it comes to Board Game Geek Con, I'm just like so fixated. Like, it's like a flow state almost, like with games, like one game into the next, that you can kind of forget those things. Like, yeah, water is also an important thing. I do a pretty good job of being vigilant about drinking enough water, but then that's kind of annoying because then, like, every 40 minutes I got to go to the bathroom because I'm overhydrating because you're in a dry hotel environment. But I mean, what's it like? It is what you want it to be in a lot of ways. Like, you can approach BGG. It's a blank canvas. You could go there and do no events. Like me. I mean, I technically did, I guess, a couple of quick events, but you could do essentially no events. You could go there and have events scheduled all the time. You could wake up at 11 and come downstairs and start playing games. You could do overnighters. Like, I definitely have friends who overnight the Saturday. Like, they play the whole week and they sleep, and then Saturday comes around and they just don't go to bed, and then they get on a plane at like 11 in the morning.
You can't see me shaking my head, but I'm just shaking my head. This is too much. I mean, I love games.
Yeah.
But hey, I want to be like laying in bed playing the game then.
Yeah. But like, you ask, like, what would happen if you came downstairs at 3 in the morning? Well, I can tell you from firsthand experience, there's going to be hundreds of people playing games at 3 in the morning.
What's the games?
If you come down at 5 in the morning, you might be starting to look at like 100 people. Or like, it's definitely going to start to trickle down for sure. But yeah, you could just approach it every way you want. The first few years, we like got to bed at midnight and then woke up at like 7 to have breakfast, and we were out there at 8 every single day. Got like a solid 7 hours of sleep. It was good. I've lost that plot. I essentially don't follow that anymore because it's just so much fun, and you have this 1 week to do it. And like the term "I'll sleep when I'm dead." It's like, well, I'll sleep when I'm back in California. Right now, this is what I actually want to do. And I might be getting tired, but I'm just having so much fun. I think I got about 23 hours of sleep over the course of 5 nights. and pretty much every minute I was not sleeping, I was gaming or gaming adjacent. I woke up at 7 every day so that I could be down there playing games at 8 in the morning. And then, I was making it back to the hotel room 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning every single night. And that's just one way that you could do it. I know other people who stay up until like 3 in the morning, and then they show up at noon. Like, they just they sleep in, they have a lovely morning. The hotel is nice. Like, I'm not a connoisseur of hotels, but it's a nice hotel. Yeah, it's a convention center hotel in downtown Dallas. So you could decide not to sleep at all, or you could sleep a whole bunch. One of my friends disappeared every couple of hours, take a nap, just take some alone time in the pretty nice hotel room, just to kind of veg out. There was a sanctuary room. They called it a sanctuary room. It's the first time they've had it this year.
I read about
Yeah,
that.
I didn't actually
Did
go
you
to see
into it?
No,
Oh.
again, flow state. I forgot
there
anything.
aren't games in the sanctuary. Yeah.
Well, there
I know.
aren't.
What
Actually,
what am I talking about?
very specifically, it's a quiet space for not gaming, for people to just need to chill out. But speaking of quiet,
yeah, it was like a sensory awareness room that is just kind of like a, hey, because you're in this giant room, I imagine, with, like you said, thousands of people playing games. I mean, it has to be loud in there.
It was surprisingly not that bad this year in particular.
The ceilings are probably like giant.
The ceilings
right?
are very high.
Interesting.
And this is the 4th year that I've gone at the new location. Like I said, it's in Dallas. The first 5 years that I went, and the first, not first, but for many, many years, like over a decade, it was at the Hyatt Regency inside of the Dallas-Fort Worth airport. It was actually, we had a joke, actually a kind of an ongoing joke, that we'd never been to Texas, because we would fly in and then walk out the arrivals gate, walk through a garage, and walk into the hotel. And then 5 days later, I would walk out of the hotel, through a garage, into the gate, and then just walk on a plane. It's like, have you actually been to Texas if you never left the perimeter of, the air tram that takes you from one terminal to the next?
Yeah.
And that's the way it used to be. And that
you were on Texas soil. Yeah.
Yeah, and that convention center was fine. It was not as nice as the new one. And the main ballroom, they had a huge ballroom there as well. It got quite loud. Like, I definitely remember that, especially on the Saturday, because, a lot of people live in Dallas and they just go to the Saturday. They just drive over there. They don't take time off in the week. So the Saturday could get pretty crazy and very loud, a bit oppressive, honestly. But I haven't noticed that at the new venue. I've been there 3 years now, 4 years, something like that. And this Saturday, I actually commented to one of my friends who was his first time going. He was like, this isn't that bad. And he's like, yo, this is way better than I had feared. And he actually has a bit of a hearing impediment. So he was like worried that it was going to be too loud, and he had no problem with it. So I think it's just maybe a better space. Maybe just people in general were being quieter. It's one of those social dynamics where it's loud, so you have to talk louder, but then you're loud so for other people, so they talk louder. I think there's like a kickoff point where suddenly it escalates, and it never quite seemed to get there. I mean, it's still a room with thousands of people talking in it, for sure. But again, there's also other places you can go to game. Like there's small side rooms and whatnot that I never actually went to, but there's definitely other options.
Do they have tricked out board games like Giant Robo Rally or something like that?
They had. There was I think a War of the Rings game happening like the entire convention. I don't know. It was like this, like a bunch of tables all penned together, and it was kind of draped off at night. They have a dexterity alley with just every dexterity game you could possibly imagine. But as far as like crazy big blinged out things, not that I could necessarily think about. I do actually want to highlight the dexterity alley though, because you don't know how many wacky dexterity games there are till you go to this convention. I mean, they've got Crokinole, other things like that, and Clask, but just a whole bunch of other strange, like wooden, for the most part, flicking and tossing and sliding games, dropping a little marble down a ramp into things. They have a Pac-Man one where you like hit from the bottom. There's all sorts of weird things that you can go to, and frequently we would actually go to the dexterity alley on the way back to our hotel room at night. So like we'd leave the ballroom at like 2:30, and it's like, let's just play this weird little game for a little bit. And then oh crap, that was 45 minutes. No, it's after 3:00 in the morning. But yeah, they just leave those games open the whole time. And it's fun to just kind of mess around with them because, they're low stakes kind of games. It's not strategy games by any means.
That dexterity world is just so wild. I remember just a couple months ago, I didn't even realize there was a whole genre of dexterity games, and I like started going down the rabbit hole, and I was like, oh my goodness, there's just a whole world here.
Yeah.
And totally different and really fun. I mean, obviously I wasn't in Dexterity Alley, but just kind of highlighting that element of games. It's fun was fun to dive in. Yeah,
this actually brings to mind a point that that actually kind of applies to the whole convention as well. And that is also the try before you buy. You have so many games that you can try there before you actually spend money to buy them. And dexterity games in particular, these kinds, like wooden crafted kind of things, they could be quite expensive. So I'm not going to name names, but there was one that it's been in my shopping cart box. Like I've hovered over the buy button many times, like $350 game, and then I played it this year, and I was like, nah, that's I'm glad I never actually bought that. And it's not Crokinole. I love my Crokinole board, but that also applies to a bunch of other games. Like I'm not going to sit here and name names of games that I almost bought that I didn't because I didn't like them, but there was a couple games that I was very close to buying before the convention. I was like, I'll probably play them at BGG Con. And then I did, and I was like, this isn't actually scratching the itch that I wanted. But the flip side is also true. I've purchased 6 games.
Yeah, let's talk about the games you purchased
I bought
today.
6 games
You want to name
So,
names? Let's hear it. Yeah,
give
what'd
us
you
some
get?
goodies.
Well, I will name. Well, I can name a few of them. Sure, why not? Like I played Leviathan Wilds, and it was amazing. And I did the late pledge for that one earlier today for that. But there's other ones that I never even heard of. Like I am so quote unquote into the industry. Like I have a monthly video on John Gets Games where I talk about all the new games that have interested me. Like I pay attention to the RSS feed of every new game that hits BGG. So you'd think that I would know about all the games, but I do not. One of them that really surprised me was Rajas of the Ganges Cards and Karma. It's like a card game version of Rajas of the Ganges. I'd never heard of it before, but it got played by a friend who liked it. He taught it to me, and now now it's on its way to my house because I really enjoyed it, and I didn't even know that existed, let alone like try before you buy kind of thing for that. So, it's not cheap to get a hotel room for 5 nights and fly to Dallas and all that kind of stuff, but in some ways it is kind of an interesting way to try these things, especially if you're like me, where frequently I really want to try a game because it just seems neat, it seems interesting, but many games are like that I'm like, if I play it once, I'm going to be fine. And you could do a lot of play it once, that was cool, maybe I'll play it again at some point in the future kind of games at the convention, which I really appreciate.
I thought it was kind of to your point of how many games, I tend to think too, both by my own, awareness of the industry and by being friends with you, that like I stay pretty up on a lot of games. Also, we're pretty deep into the coldies, the going into
Old
the
stuff.
backlogs of
Yeah.
games, old stuff, yeah. And so like I'm like, oh yeah, like I know a lot of games, right? And but following along at home and seeing the games that you guys were playing and then seeing the list of games you played, I was honestly shocked that like I looked at it, I think I knew like 5 of the 42 games that you played. Or maybe 10, like maybe 10 like I'd heard of some of them.
Yeah.
And I was like, that to me, I was like, whoa. That's crazy, because
But again, that's
there's so many.
Yeah, but that's also like you make of the con what you will. Like there's a hot games room. I can't believe I've gone this long without actually talking about it. Where I mentioned that like all the hottest games from Essen get sent over. A lot of them make it into the library, and they're very hard to get a copy of because everybody wants to rent that game. But usually about 15 of them or so get set up into this hot games area. This year it was actually right next to the library. They moved it, and it was I think a pretty good position for it. And the games just say set up. You when you finish playing the game, you actually set it back up to be ready for the next people to play, and then you walk away from the table, and then somebody else sits down, and the game is already set up. It never, well, they pack it up at the end of the night, but it essentially never leaves the table all day long. And there are a lot of people where that's the convention for them. Like they will stay in the hot games room for like most of the first few days, moving from one to the next. I mean, you have to wait because you have to, people have to leave, and you kind of have to call dibs and whatnot. And that's actually why I have not played a single game in the hot games room the last 2 years I've gone.
Why wait when you have a gazillion other games to play?
Right, exactly. And again, you can make of the convention what you will. Like for some people, like they have to play all 15 of those games. That's what they want to do, and you could absolutely do that because you have enough time to do that. Other people like me, I don't really mind so much as long as I'm playing something, then that's good enough for me. And that library has so many deep cuts. And again, I'm such a broken record. You make of it what you will. But my group of friends was really enjoying finding old, weird games in the gigantic older part of the library.
I thought I knew all the old weird
Nope.
games, but you
Nope.
guys found old. I mean, of
Like-
course I don't, but like you found old weird games. I mean, there was this whole like mouse situation that I don't even know what
a couple of our
happened.
friends made it a goal to just try and find every mice and cheese old German game in the library, and they found a surprising number of games about mice and cheese, and some of them were not good. Like there was one that I played, Viva Topo it was called, and this is just a kid's game. Like this is a roll and move game essentially, and I'm sitting there playing it with a couple other 40-year-olds at 2:30 in the morning, and we're just laughing our butts off, like because we're just having fun. Like it's super late or super early, however you want to say it. We're playing a game for children, but the components are funny. We're laughing at the art, and it's just the joy of the play in a lot of ways. But then they found another game called Chateau Roquefort or Burg Appenzell, I think is the original German name.
I think I saw the photos of this one. This one.
I have actually. That's one of the 6 games I bought. Like I'd never heard of it before.
Oh heck yes, because I really want to play it. Okay, good. Well,
I've never even heard of it before, but here it is. Coming out of the depths of the library. This game is only like 15 years old, I think. But it was just
okay. Let's get Dave over. We'll film it. You can
it was an incredible game, and so I'm really looking forward to getting a copy of that.
Promises.
And I never would have tried it if I had other friends who had not decided to make it a quest to find games with mice and cheese. And the fact that you can have a quest to find multiple games with mice and cheese in it will definitely tell you the depths of what the backlog of this library actually has available.
No, 100%. One of the things that I think is the magic of going to a convention like this, even though I haven't gone to one, is the fact that you're in the hotel, kind of to what you were saying earlier, Nick, where you're like, isn't that just what you can go downstairs in your pajamas, like you're I mean, I'd probably put on clothes, but you're able to go up to your room, you play a game, and then you're like, cool, I'm tired, I'm gonna go lay down for a while. Like it's like it's as if your bedroom is just up an elevator, right?
Yeah.
As well
Literally.
as like a restaurant and like several restaurants and
there's a bar,
like all sorts of amenities, right?
Yeah, they're fine.
Yeah, the food is the one thing that kind of convinced me. It's great.
There's a bar, and it has pretty good burgers and fries and stuff like that and beer, but it's also not very cheap. There's a restaurant that is quite not very cheap, and the food is fine there. There's like an Italian restaurant that I've never been to that I've heard is really dark. I don't really know. But generally what I know, right? But
you're selling it, man.
Bad lighting, good pasta.
But then right down the middle of the kind of space, like right between like the path between the main hall and the library, they set up a food table thing, like not really a cafeteria, but like a long string of tables with a bunch of pre-prepared food on it, like sandwiches and burgers and all that kind of stuff. And you can just buy it, spend way too much money for those kind of things, but it's super quick. And then you just walk right back into the hall, like you can eat in there. So like you just go get food, come back, and you're eating there. It's very convenient, and it's where I ate most of my meals. But also, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Like the food there is not good at all. The selection is very poor. And honestly, that's the biggest thing I miss from the other location. It sounds silly to say, but at the other spot, at the airport, they always had chicken tenders. And you know what? That's just like a go-to thing. You know what? I'm hungry. Just going to get some chicken tenders and some ranch sauce. Easy.
Give me some chicken tendies.
But now, like, it's a hamburger that's pretty rubbery for $10, or like a packaged sandwich that's not very interesting for $10, or the thing that I ended up getting almost every day, not because it's my favorite thing, but because it was the most efficient thing. The walking tacos was an option.
Oh, no.
Walking
yes,
tacos.
which was literally $10 for a bag of Doritos dumped onto a plate, and then like 2 heaping spoonfuls of ground beef.
Gotcha. So we should be budgeting at least 10 extra minutes of bathroom time every day. Is what I'm hearing.
Wow.
But the reason that was good is because they had a condiment table with just like infinite sour cream and infinite pico de gallo and cheese. So you do that and you walk over there and you just make a mountain. Like just mountain the heck out of it with the salsa and all that kind of stuff.
Walking tacos. I think you just described really sad nachos, like without any cheese. Like I don't.
Yeah.
I don't.
You know what? Every other day they had Flamin' Hot Doritos as an option instead of the regular.
Oh my gosh. This honestly has been my biggest, like, I had a whole plan. Like
Yeah.
I had like pre-scouted my Trader Joe's to be like,
Mhm.
okay, this is what I'm gonna eat, but I was like, how big is the mini fridge gonna be? Like, because I
Yeah.
feel like I'm
Yeah.
kind of picky about my food.
Mhm.
Doing the
And
grocery
this is
store
obviously
thing is like a very valid solution, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I did that this year actually.
Yeah.
I got a bunch of breakfast
Oh.
burritos and Red Bull, and I didn't end up eating most of the breakfast burritos because I just forgot to eat in the mornings. But I will say, like, after ragging on the food at the hotel so much, there's a perfect solution for it, which a lot of my friends used for every meal, and it's called DoorDash.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah. That was my plan. I was
Yeah,
like, I'm
like,
just gonna end up DoorDashing.
unlike the previous location,
everything.
which in my opinion, the restaurant I think was a bit cheaper and it was the same amount of fine, and like we ate at the restaurant like frequently at the old convention spot, but that was in the airport, like very far away from other things. The new spot is in downtown Dallas, and so like a good friend of ours is vegetarian, and the options were not great at the hotel. He just DoorDashed every meal. And they just come to the front desk area, or like they drive in anyway to the, not the front desk, but the kind of drop off kiosk, and you walk out there, and everybody was doing this. Like it was just
Couldn't
constant.
your friend just have asked for walking tacos with no meat and then just fill the whole thing with pico de gallo?
I think so. It's flaming hot Doritos,
Yeah,
sour
yeah.
cream.
And
Unless
all
you're
the sour
vegan,
cream
then
you can
you're,
eat.
Yeah,
Are Doritos
green
vegetarian?
onions.
Does they count?
I didn't hear mention of any beans. There's
No.
no.
So yeah,
No,
it's
okay.
there are solutions. Like you said, there are mini fridges and there's microwaves and that kind of stuff. Also, yeah, there's a ton of different restaurants that you can DoorDash from. I saw people getting pizza. Like you could just eat in the convention centers. There's no areas I think where you can't eat. There's some areas where you can't game, where they're like, this is for eating only, but it's very flexible with that. And people just do big orders and come in with a whole bunch of Indian food or that kind of thing, and then you're eating good food. And you're paying a little bit for the cost of the delivery, but honestly, you're paying way less than the mediocre food at all the other spots. So there's a solution around it.
I want to actually, speaking of cost, and I mean, I guess I can speak to this because I spent it and then didn't spend it, but as well as you. But I actually was really impressed with how much this con cost. I mean, no convention is cheap, right? So I mean, this convention is not cheap, but if you have a roommate, the actual ticket cost is only like, I think $150.
Yeah,
I shouldn't say only, but $150 for 5 days of gaming, and then of course
6 days.
you have to get your hotel. 6 days, right?
Realistically, because technically the convention starts on Wednesday, but tons of people, me included, and most of our friends, fly in on the Tuesday, and the library isn't open. You don't even have badges yet. You haven't checked in, but BGG is like setting up, and they have various areas that are ready, and there are hundreds and hundreds of people there on the Tuesday, and we just played the games that we brought. So yeah, like $150 essentially for a 6-day experience, and then the hotel rooms are like $150 a night for 2 kings or 2 queens, maybe 2 queens. And yeah, especially if you get a roommate, you're walking out like $500 or $600, before you talk about food and flights and stuff. But for a full
and of
week's
course,
vacation,
food and flights and all those things, if maybe you have points or whatever, it's just it's definitely, I think we touched on this a little bit, having an episode recently about the World Series of Board Gaming. That is a more expensive convention to go to. I mean, that's obviously a completely different type of convention, and you're gaming for prizes, and there's prize money, and there's all these other things that the tickets need to kind of fund and be a part of. But there's something very attractive, and I actually think, Nick, didn't you say that the WBC is
Yeah, I mean, it's the same kind of ticket price, and it's 9 days.
Yeah. 9 days. Yeah, more for your buck.
I mean, the biggest expense with all of these is the lodging, right? Like it always comes down to the hotel, how it costs to get there, eating the food every day if you're door dashing or whatever. Like that's the stuff that adds
door
up
dashing
more
can
than
add
the
up.
actual ticket.
You're like,
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I have one curiosity question. Yeah. You're like board game famous. Do people at the convention come up to talk to you?
Yes.
Do they come up to talk to you and tell you how much they love your podcast, Friendly Ties, and your co-hosts Nick and Anastasia?
No comment.
Oh man,
that has actually happened before. It did not happen this year though. Yeah, no, it is an interesting experience to be well known within a niche. BGG Con was actually the first time that ever happened to me. The first time I ever went to BGG Con was 2014. I started John Gets Games in April of 2014. So what, like 7 months earlier, however that math works out. And Jessica actually designed these iron-on like templates for t-shirts that said John Gets Games, like huge, like ridiculously large, because like I had a YouTube channel with like a few hundred subscribers, and I was trying to like, you know, be known essentially, or like be more seen. And so I was just terrified. I was petrified with anxiety and everything, wearing this t-shirt, and like nobody's gonna know who I am. I've had a YouTube channel for like 7 months, and when I was standing in line to register, the person behind me was like, "Oh, I've seen one of your videos." And that was the first time that ever happened, was actually while I was waiting in line to register for my very first BGG Con. And yeah, these days, I try not to be full of myself or anything like that, but it does seem like a lot of people know who I am. You know, just walking around, like people kind of like notice, like, but try not to notice, and frequently come up and say, you know, thank you, etc. And actually, one pretty common thing is people are like, "I thought I heard that voice," because I'm pretty loud, and I tend to laugh very loud, and I also swear quite a bit when I'm not rolling on the camera, and I think that might surprise some people. But yeah, it's but lots of other people. Like there's lots of YouTube channels that show up, podcast people. You see like people walking around with their merch for their podcasts and whatnot. I mean, the people who started Board Game Geek, they're obviously there. They're wonderful people. The people who are working the convention all wear big jerseys so you can see where they are. Yeah, just walking around, it's definitely a bit of a microcosm of the board game industry in a lot of ways.
Yeah, isn't that kind of funny, the things that kind of feel like celebrity to you? Like, I imagine though that most board gamers, and I think you've mentioned this in the past, are like really respectful and like, you know, kind of like let you do your thing and be in your space and don't try to like, you know. And I mean, gosh, we talk about this all the time. I mean, I love that about this hobby. I just love that people are so nice.
Yeah.
And that, you know, and the way you guys have talked about these conventions, and that's the thing, when I eventually do get to a convention, which I'm very much looking forward to, I'm excited to just, you know, see a bunch of people who love hobby all in one space.
And you just be ready for somebody to be like, "Hey, I know that voice." Yeah.
It's like, no one's ever seen my face, so it's gonna be I'll be like walking around being like, I don't know.
Incognito, yeah. So yeah, that was my my 9th time going. It was a brilliant time. I just had such a great time with it. I fully expect to go again. I'm not. This is kind of like a bit of a constant. Like this is just like 1 week out of the year that I really like to go. The timing is a little funky for a lot of people. I would admit it's always the week before Thanksgiving, except when it's not. The last 2 years it's been a week early, but I think that's because of pandemic shenanigans, like, you know, everything canceled in 2020 and some of the slots moved around. But moving forward, I think it's back to their preferred time of the week right before Thanksgiving. So hypothetically, you fly back on the Sunday and Thanksgiving is 4 days later. That's really great for some people. Also for other people, that kind of takes it out of contention, which is just a consideration, I guess, for how that all works. But I love it. It's so much fun. It's the only convention besides Essen that I've been to multiple times. I've been to BGG Con 9 times, Essen 3 times, and Gen Con once, Origins once, Expo once, all those kind of things. It was interesting to go to them, but I did not fall in love with them like I have BGG Con and Essen as well. But that's a whole different it's a whole different can of worms. If I go to Essen again next year, maybe we could do another one of these podcasts and I can ramble a whole bunch about that one.
Well, it has been super fun to listen to you share this with us.
Yeah.
And
it's fun to gush.
Until the next one. We'll probably go back to games from here, so hang in there with us. We've got a few. John's come home with a few hot games that he's been talking about. We've been playing some stuff. Nick and I got some games in while John was in Dallas. So we've got some things to play and some things to report on. So we're looking forward to that. So we'll hear from us soon.
Bye.
Bye.